In a saga that began with the base game, players have been essentially chasing a confrontation against Mephisto, the Lord of Hatred, just as Blizzard Entertainment has been chasing them for all the ways to improve the experience. Bare bones and rudimentary as it was, improvements rolled through over the years for almost every aspect, and this expansion, coinciding with a free update, promises to be the most sweeping yet. And while there are some positive aspects, the expansion leaves me in the same spot as it did all those years, waiting for it to deliver a better experience rather than simply bolting on more systems and hitting those monthly active player counts. The expansion features a new endgame activity, heavy emphasis on the quotes, alongside odd additions, fishing, and actual meaningful gameplay changes. But above all, it's about Mephisto, and if you're already beyond caring about the plot, the expansion will do little to change your mind. Reuniting with Lorath Nair following discoveries made by Nyreli, the Wanderer ventures to Skovos to stop the Primeval and his latest plan, which involves gathering the support of the people, including the Amazons, and harnessing an eclipse for some unknown purpose. If you rolled a world-ending scenario, that's a natural 20. Despite all of it, and even with reliable performances from the likes of Ralph Ineson, the plot really lurches along until you're reunited with you-know-who, the explanation about as reasonable as somehow Palpatine returned. Unfortunately, this whole cyclical nature of hatred isn't something Blizzard is really keen on exploring, much less psychoanalyzing, but the current villain must be stopped because. And doing that requires hunting down 3 pieces of a blade and stabbing him lickety-split, no fuss, no muss. Of course, it also doesn't help that, once again, this doesn't feel like much of the Wanderer story. Just that one is siding along and partaking in events as they happen with the ever-nagging feeling that maybe we shouldn't have killed the big bad all those years ago. Anyway, by now you're probably wondering why I'm so held up by the story and the direction. Leaving aside that the above are really the only interesting parts about expansion's plot, I can empathize with those who are only here to blast through monsters and earn sick loot. Who cares about the campaign when you're going to clear it once and forget about it after? Well, therein lies the problem. Just as with the base game and Vessel of Hatred, the campaign is about 8 hours long, and that's by design. Blizzard really wants to linger on this story and characters, to the point where it hampers the pacing. For every impressively rendered cutscene, there are so many moments where you're rooted in place, having to listen to a character drone on, then click on them for a dialogue option to trigger a cutscene, and no amount of skipping can fix that. Can be made more succinct. Heck, there are several places where it is, as seen in the final hours or so. But despite how terse some of the situations are, Blizzard opts for verboseness. As a result, there's much ado about nothing through the majority of this campaign, save for going somewhere to engage in almost as much rudimentary conversation as monster slaying. Is it an improvement over Vessel of Hatred? It's not saying much, but yes, and much of that can be attributed to the final boss, which is perhaps one of the best yet, balancing spectacle with interesting mechanics. I was gobsmacked throughout this whole encounter. By Diablo 4 standards, of course, especially given most of the standard fare that the rest of the expansion had to offer. There are some other cool moments in the story, and for once, Blizzard chose not to overtly push future threats for the sake of setting up its seasons. Of course, that's only one aspect of the Diablo 4 experience. The other, and one that players will be more interested in, is the endgame, specifically war plans, fishing, and echoing hatred. We might as well get fishing out of the way first since it's the most straightforward. While starting as a side quest, it opens the ability to fish anywhere in the world and adds those catches to your collection. The actual mechanics of it offer little more than opening the emote wheel, almost like Blizzard is mocking me at this point, given my severe dislike of quests that require it, and selecting fish. From there, you wait till you catch bites and press the button at the right time. Fish can be traded for high-level items and materials, and there are even dedicated challenges and cosmetic sets. Think of it as more of a side activity than anything else, something to complement the monster slaying. Echoing Hatred, where you face endless hordes of progressively difficult enemies and net better rewards depending on how long you survive, requires an exceedingly rare item that simply hasn't dropped for me yet. There's something to be said about endgame activities with high barriers to entry, but when you've advertised one as a major selling point for a $40 expansion, you would at least think that a free sample is due. A taste for what players can expect, but alas, there's none of that here, so keep grinding away and hoping that it drops before Blizzard inevitably caves and either buffs the drop rate or offers a way to craft them. Don't worry though, because you'll be grinding out some very familiar activities courtesy of War Plans. The joke before expansions launch about how this is little more than a playlist of the current slate of endgame offerings, from a run in the pit to completing a nightmare dungeon, isn't exactly a joke. Granted, these are adjusted to more adequately fit a series of activities rather than standing on their own, so a nightmare dungeon will have more streamlined objectives, which is all the more hilarious because trying to garner enough Aether for the alternate boss fight becomes much more challenging, though not downright impossible. You're rewarded after every activity completion and then receive a final reward once the entire plan is complete. Then you do it again. It's not purely play what you want. There is some freedom in choosing different nodes, but the chances of outright avoiding the Undercity are very low, especially as the war plans facilitate up to 5 activities in a row. As you complete activities, you'll earn skill points for distinct passive trees that can result in such things as the chance to fight 2 initiate bosses after opening a lair boss's chest. These don't dramatically alter the activities in question, more like adding some bells and whistles, a major cut below the Atlas tree in Path of Exile. Despite slightly spicing up these activities, it doesn't feel like something befitting a paid expansion such as this. Also, I'm baffled why this system doesn't include world bosses or Legion events. Perhaps coordinating those is too challenging, even if it would have helped the variety. Nevertheless, you'll spend a decent amount of time farming war plans for new seals and hieratic cube materials. The latter can be used for a variety of things, from upgrading rare loot to legendaries, offering a decent power spike on new characters, adding new modifiers on existing gear at the cost of making it unmodifiable, transmuting 3 of the same item into a new one, and so on. And while I can appreciate being able to reroll the values of an Ancestral Unique's core power or to remove affixes, it doesn't change the simplicity of the crafting system, nor really encourage much else beyond tossing in a relatively complete Ancestral, be it unique or legendary, and transfiguring or corrupting it for one last modifier. You're not going to brick the item or make it disappear, but in the same vein, the results thus far have left me wanting. It's complementary and definitely has its uses. All my fellow Jarun researchers, our time has come, and if you've ever wanted to craft a common item from the ground up into something, then you can. But you could also just blast through the rest of the game and bathe in the loot explosions. It's a process that, like the whole unmodifiable business, doesn't really gel with what Diablo 4 is trying to offer. Then again, at this point, I don't quite know if Diablo 4 is trying to gel with what Diablo 4 is after. And nowhere is that more obvious than with the addition of the Talisman. You could equip a seal that opens up several charm slots, letting you fit up to 6, though you'll be spending a lot of time with 5 for a while. While there are magic, rare, and unique charms to equip, each with their own stats and benefits, set bonuses also make a return. And once again, they're going to railroad you into their bonuses to augment a specific playstyle. I found that the Epiphany set could suit one purpose of the Arbiter build, essentially gigabuffing the ultimate to obscene levels for a short period while heavily reducing its cooldown. But on the other hand, the Iron Conviction set fed more into the Aura playstyle, heavily improving survivability and making all those additional Aura skill levels useful. Like the Cube, it's complementary on top of your current build, but the very nature on the set bonuses means they'll dictate the meta rather than exist outside of it. And of course, each charm has its own ancestral version, because why not add another layer of RNG on top of everything else? On the bright side, the 2 new classes are lots of fun. I spent the most time with Paladin becoming Arbiter Andy, walking around and decimating enemies with wing strikes, which proves so good that I think the increased damage modifier has been outright removed from tempering. While not too well versed with the Warlock at present, I found its take on the Summoner playstyle, which involved bringing in brutes and hurling bodies at enemies within a summoning circle to translate kills into more minions, to be chaotically enjoyable. If you needed any impetus to pick up the expansion, it's probably these 2, because for what it's worth, Diablo 4's base combat still feels viscerally enjoyable. I don't have much to say about Scovos, save for the fact that it's a gorgeous location, and once again the art team at Blizzard continues to carry this artwork through thick and thin. Diablo 4's open world design, where you're flitting from one place to the next on a mount, partaking in the same random world events on repeat, is what it is at this point. I'm not a fan, but at least Scovos feels less sprawling and more compact in its design, which means less travel time. I would have loved to end this review by saying that the expansion is simply more Diablo 4, and that if you love the base game, then you'll probably like this. Content-wise, that definitely holds, especially with the new classes, and there have been enough systemic changes in this latest update that lapsed players will want to come back to, and at least play around with all the systems. However, at this point, almost 3 years later, Diablo 4 still struggles to resonate with me. The ingredients are seemingly there, but the design decisions and overall endgame loop continue to disappoint, with war plans feeling like a little more than a band-aid fix to try and string them all together. Maybe with the Hatred saga over and done with, the feeling of hope for the future will result in something, anything innovative or meaningful for the game as a whole. As it currently stands, however, it begets little more than a feeling of what could have been. Hey, did you know that we at Gaming Bolt upload new videos every day? Stick around, drop a like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And let us know what kind of content you'd like to see in the future with a comment below.